Sand.
My cabbages!
Low, low, man.
Ah, my cabbages! Are you guys enjoying the stream today?
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy, Andrew Esquire, here live in Seoul, South Korea. And of course, it's the legal mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Today, I am breaking down I was early because I'm excited. I am going to fully break down what happened before, during, and after. There's a lot of stuff that happened before, during, after the sentencing and the verdict, what happens, what comes next. All of that stuff coming today. Some of you who follow my locals may have gotten tipped off to this secret a little bit earlier today. If you follow my ex, you may know that I'm here in Seoul, South Korea. I indeed did not tell anybody because I wanted Ramsey to be surprised. I wanted him to be scared. I wanted him to be shocked. And I think that is the effect that indeed did happen, because Ramsey today was unlike the first time I was there in court with him. He was not smiling. He was not laughing at me. He was not making a face. He was alone. He was scared, and he did get carted off and handcuffed. And at the end of the day, and this is kind of my starting conclusion, we'll get to how I'm not happy about exactly what happened. But at the end of the day, Johnny Somali said that he would not get 1 day in prison. He said, I promise you, I will not get 1 day in prison. That is incorrect. Johnny Somali was absolutely felted, destroyed, absolutely proven wrong. Step by step, Johnny Somali has thought he is smarter than the law. He's thought he's smarter than the Korean system. He's made fun of the Korean system. And we actually have proof in the trial today that the judge was paying attention to what was going on online and in his social presence during the trial. So we know that this is a result of the fact that there is a potential for others to repeat this, and also because he was mocking Korean law, Korean culture, and the Korean system. So we got all these things. So I'm going to do this procedurally, chronologically, explain everything that happened. Now, I am not going to be dropping a PP here today because this is live and fresh. There will be, if you want an abbreviated version, I'm going to eventually do a fast condensed summary, but we're going to do this. I know there's going to be a lot of super chats. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get through the explanation of what happened first, and then I'm going to get to all your questions, everything else. I'll get a couple of just the comments here starting out, like I'm an American with a $3 super sticker. Thank you. And a $4. Thank you so much. Magma Fox, member for 25 months, which is about how long this case has been going on, saying, hoy, hoy, didn't I just hit 2 years? Well, here's the hope in the prosecution appeals for a longer sentence. We're going to get to that. So I'll explain everything here. So send in your super chats and your messages. I will get to all of them. I will not stop the stream until I answer every question, every chat. We'll get those. And also in the pinned comment, if you haven't gotten your cabbage plushie, make sure to do that. Also, you can go to my Ko-Fi, which is Ko-Fi/Andrew Esquire, and help support the Somali conviction team, because they were all here today, all the members, the ones you know, some of them like Dr. Ulrich Nod, who's a professor who's been in on this, and he was very critical with translation. He actually engaged with the Korean media today and served as our translator in explaining who we were, where we were at, because there's a big disconnect with Korean media and American media. They don't follow American YouTubers, so they didn't really know who we are. So Dr. Ulrich Nod was really clear with that. He also wrote in to the court and helped us present our material. We also have Gabe, who's been on a couple interviews and talked about that, member of the SCT. We had other translators there, other folks. So if you guys head over to that Ko-Fi and you want to kick back and you want to say thank you to those folks, it's just Ko-Fi/Andrew Esquire, and we can give them some thank you, because at the end of the day, because Johnny Somali was sentenced, there's a degree of happiness, right? There's a degree of we got him, right? I mean, let's play the clip, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
We'll talk about the caveats and everything else. So let's get into it. Let's get into what happened today with this courtroom and what went down. So we're at the Western District Courthouse. He's been in the same courtroom throughout the entire process. So when I first came here for the very first trial, I was here for the very first one. And it's the same room, same judge. The prosecutor did indeed change. It was a female prosecutor, and she was there early. Now, one thing about today, as compared to all other days, it was packed, ladies and gentlemen. There were people in this courtroom sitting on the floor with their laptops, standing around the edges. By the end of it, by the time that the trial started, there's probably about 40, 45 people in the courtroom, majority of them taking notes. And you knew they were there for Johnny Somali because as soon as that case was over, as soon as that verdict was rendered, they all left. Now, in the Korean court system, they process several defendants at one day. So they started with Ramsey Khalid Ismael because they knew everybody was there for that. So that's why they started with that, and they processed him and got him out of there. Now, when he came in, he was threatening to wear a kippah. That's, the Jewish head garb, right? He did not wear a kippah. He did not wear a MAGA anything. He did, however, wear a Israel and U.S. pin. So he didn't wear a kippah, and I got to adjust this AI thing because it's trying to move on me, my AI camera here. Sorry, guys. So he did wear a U.S. Israel pin, but otherwise he's wearing a suit. He came with a fully packed backpack. Now, this indicates that, especially since Hank was not there, that he was prepared to go to jail. So despite all of his tough talk, he had all of his belongings on him in that backpack. And so when you are taken off and taken away in Korean court, they take all your possessions and they take those away, handcuff you, etc. So he had everything ready to go. So when he came in, he wasn't even with his lawyer. His lawyer wasn't there. Also, people were speculating that his mother was going to be there. His mother was not there. So his mother was not in attendance. He was completely alone. There were 0 people there supporting him. There were many members of major Korean news outlets, all of which approached us before, during, and after. There are many cameras on the outside. And when we left, we were actually interviewed by Korean media. And I'll talk about that after we talk about the sentencing. But they were very much there for Johnny Somali in the Johnny Somali trial. Now, here's what happened during the actual proceedings. So the judge brought him up, asked him his name. He said his name is Ramsey Khalid Ismael. They said, okay, 6 charges you're guilty on. There's 2 that you pled not guilty. And they gave the reasoning first why he is guilty. So the judge found him guilty of the deepfake charges that he pled not guilty on. And the basis for that, the judge said, was a reasonable person would find enough proof for this and enough damages caused by this. This is what I said the entire time. It's very clear he's guilty of that because he clearly distributed that. However, the judge then got to the sentencing portion. And the sentencing portion is where it got very interesting and where we have potential for appeal by the prosecution. And of course, Johnny can appeal as well, but the prosecution might be able to appeal this. So here's what the judge said regarding the deepfake sentencing. The judge did factor in the settlement with Youngman. So it said, okay, you have a settlement with Youngman, and Youngman said he's not interested in pursuing punishment on that. So that's one of the 2 deepfake charges, the male streamer Youngman. That was, of course, a picture of Youngman and Hank making out. Youngman had a separate trial and was facing very, very serious criminal charges. So he was trying to mitigate his punishment there, which is why he entered into the settlement with Johnny Somali in the first place. But once again, the judge and the prosecutors don't have to actually rely on that and can find that as insincere. So they don't have to actually give deep weight to that actual settlement. But the judge appeared to give some weight to it and mitigate his punishment because of that. Also, the judge said, and this is very interesting, that Bong Bong didn't want to pursue punishment, which according to our records, because we have transcripts of the entire thing, we have no records going through the clear court records and everything else of Bong Bong ever saying that Bong Bong didn't want to pursue punishment. Now, Bong Bong did say that she was not that ashamed of it because she's kind of a personality where she puts everything out there and doesn't feel a lot of shame in general, but she didn't say she didn't want to pursue punishment. So that's something that I think the judge may have misinterpreted and once again gives the prosecution the ability to appeal. However, the judge balanced out those two mitigating factors in his mind for sentencing with two aggravating factors. And those factors were two things. Number one, repeat offenders. So this is for the Ice Poseidons of the world, the other nuisance streamers, the other people coming to Korea. He brought up explicitly that there are other streamers out there doing IRL streams, and the potential for them to come here and do these things is something they want to mitigate. They do not want this to be repeated. And they view this disrespect of Korean culture and law and the Korean system as a problem. And they saw this, and he brought this up, as disrespectful towards Korean law, Korean social climate and order, right? Order and law within Korea. That was brought up. So this disrespect of Korean law and order and the fact that others are going to potentially come into Korea and disrupt law and order was a big thing. The other factor they brought up, which I brought up with many other streamers, and this being a problem, Vitaly, et cetera, is that they streamed this and profited from this. So the fact that this was live streamed, the fact that this was something that was put out there to the public and live streamed for everybody to see, which they profited off of, was factored in. The other thing, which was very, very interesting, is after they said this and they announced the sentencing, they gave Johnny Somali, the judge said to Johnny Somali, do you have any reason why we shouldn't detain you and jail you today? So here's what Johnny Somali said, and I'm gonna read this from my ex. I live tweeted this out, but he had a very, very specific statement when he was talking about this. So they said, "Why shouldn't you go to prison?" So here's what Johnny Somali said: "I have a family back home. I need a chance to change my life as a young person. And I think in a second chance, I can do better, right? Give me a second chance and I want to do better." He also added on a bold-faced lie that said, "Throughout the court proceedings, I have not done any acts to offend anyone, which shows I have learned a lesson." Now, we, of course, know this is a lie. We documented throughout the course of the trial several potential crimes, as well as the child sexual harassment charges which were filed. And the judge mentioned, in this, that once again, they've seen his behavior over the course of his time in Korea, and it's cumulative, right? It's cumulative to that behavior over the course as a spree of behavior, right? As a spree of disrupting the order within Korea. So they're aware of these things that happened during the course of the trial, and the fact that these things were multiple incidences that disrupted the overall law, fabric, and order within Korea. So they factored in a lot of things there, and the judge did appear to be aware of, number one, other charges being filed, but the things that he was doing otherwise. The judge also brought up that he continued to upload to YouTube and continued to put stuff out there on YouTube. So they were aware that he was continuing to try to profit, to try to put things out there, and to try to monetize even during his time in Korea. So all of that was factored in. So the sentence, let's get to the sentence. 6 months and 20 days. Let's not forget that 20 days. Let's not forget the 20 days of labor. Now, let's not use the word hard labor because some people get persnickety about that. They think it's a chain gang or like working in the mines. Of course, that's not real, right? With labor. Now, it's not soft labor because it's not an office job or something cushy. This is going to be a monotonous factory job. He was also found to be a sex offender, and he has sex offender status for 5 years. So that what means is he will not be around any women, children, anywhere around playgrounds, schools, churches, and he has to be in a specialized segregated prison. So a prison, not the foreigner prison, a prisoner away from that, dedicated to labor and possibly with other sex offenders. So he'll be put in a very specialized facility with labor. So he's not going to get away with normal prison time or normal sentencing or a cushy foreigner prison. He's got labor as well. Now, let's talk about how I feel about that. So I am happy he got time. Johnny Somali said he would not get a day in jail. So at the end of the day, we felt it. Like it's
emotional cabbage.
Not happy about getting a day in jail. And they're certainly not going to be happy about labor, right? He's not going to be happy about forced labor. He doesn't have a choice. If he doesn't do the labor, he's going into solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is indeed a thing in Korea. And I can imagine that Johnny Somali may spend a lot of time in solitary confinement. If he acts up, tries to act a fool, tries to do anything stupid, he's going to get in solitary. Now, what do I think? I think that's not strong enough. I think they should have given 2 or 3 years. I think 6 months is not going to be enough for him to learn a lesson. I think the kid needed at least 2 to 3 years to learn a serious lesson. Yes, it proves him wrong. Yes, we were right? He indeed was prison. So, I can get the points and the happiness from being right, but am I happy about that? No. And here's the nuance. And here is the important thing. In Korea, and guys, people say I look like I'm standing in front of an elevator. I'm in a Korean study room. And this is a little nice thing in an office where you come in. It's got Wi-Fi. It's all set up nice. Very nice Korea. Korea is amazing. I love Korea. I may be spending a lot more time here. So with the appeal, both the prosecutor and the defendant have 7 days to appeal. In Korea, unlike in America, this doesn't happen in America, in the American system. In Korea, the prosecutor can appeal if it's a light sentence. And this, to me, is a slap in the face for the prosecutor. And for others that are familiar with the system, talking to Dr. Al-Ragnad, Gabe, others that know the system, that have worked in this, that have won Supreme Court cases here in Korea, very familiar with this. This is a light sentence. Anything under 1.5 years was going light on him. So the prosecutor has 1 week to appeal. So we will see within the next week if there's an appeal by either Johnny Somali or the prosecutor. And I think the prosecutor would be justified. And what we did was, and this is very, very good on our part with the Somali conviction team. So shout out to them. Once again, if you want to help, support these Chads, and Stacey's, go over to Ko-Fi, make sure to support these guys, because we talk to the Korean media. And that's probably the most effective thing to get this appeal pushed and to get the prosecutor on it. So when we went outside, all of us, Atozi was there, Dr. Al-Ragnad, Gabe, others, Kang Min Lee from X was there. We talked to the Korean media, and they asked us how we felt about it. And we expressed the fact that we think it's a light sentence and we think the prosecutor should appeal. We put that out there to the Korean media. So this was with there were, I think, 6 or 7 video cameras out there, about 30 reporters out there, tons of people out there. So this will circulate widely in Korean media, as well as getting on YouTube, X, going into the American media as well. So this is going to be put out there, propagated both ways. And all of us unanimously said we don't feel this was enough. We feel it was an insult to the prosecutor. We feel this was not enough to deter people. We think that a real sentence would deter people would be 2 or 3 years. So at the 2+ mark. So we actually hope the prosecutor will appeal and think they will appeal. Now, of course, Johnny may try to appeal as well, and we'll see about that. But I don't see the sentence being reduced anything less than that. I don't see him winning or having a basis to win anything less than that. He already got a severely mitigated sentence. So I would find it absolutely ridiculous if anything else was given. Other than that, I was asked, about who I was, why I was here. They asked me, are you here as a YouTuber or an American? And my answer is both. And what they said is, what do you really want? I said, we want the truth, because Johnny Somali has been lying about this case. He's been lying about what's going on in the courtroom. He's been lying about the process. He's been lying about what's going to happen. We just wanted the truth and to put out the truth of this case to show you guys how the Korean system works and to advocate for justice. Yes, it's an insult to me as an American to have another American acting like this. Yes, as a YouTuber, I want to expose behavior like this, of course. And beyond that, I think it's very, very important that people see that there are consequences for their actions, that it's FAFO, right? We need that. Because without some consequences for these people, for these nuisance streamers, they're going to continue to get worse. And it won't just be Johnny Somali. There will be another Johnny Somali who rises up and tries to do this abroad. And I think a lot of these nuisance streamers that are operating abroad have been laying low, waiting for this sentencing. And they've been seeing what happens here. So they're banking their future careers on what happens here. So seeing there's going to be some prison time will probably deter a certain level of behavior. But But I think a lot of shenanigans may still go on if they, factor in that they'll only get 6 months, because they'll say, hey, I'm going to go out of prison and I'm going to be even more famous. I'm going to make even more money. I'm going to be even more profitable. I'll do 6 months in jail and I'll make even more money when I get out of jail. Right? Look at Vitaly. Vitaly is already out getting in trouble, and I'm going to have a video on that coming out where he's going to be sued for false accusations, already getting into bad behavior. Do I think 6 months is enough to change Johnny Somali? No, I do not. I think he needed 2 to 3 years to even have a possibility of learning a hard lesson, but he certainly is not happy about it. So let's get to some of these questions and some of these comments here. Once again, I'm going to get all of them. And I'll get kind of in the order of going memberships first, and then I will get the bigger ones in order of like size. So Jen, thank you for the 5 legal mindset memberships. Appreciate that. And all the members here, you guys have been absolutely freaking awesome. Let's see here. James says, is it live? Yes, we're exactly live. Catching this live for a change and enjoying it. Awesome. Rocambo Blue says, when he gets out of prison, I reckon he'll be back to his usual activity, maybe in a different country. It's similar to Vitaly. I agree with that. I think Vitaly is a very good comparison here, because I think that Vitaly, you see him going back to his old behavior, back to his what he was doing before. And I think Johnny Somali will do the exact same thing. Rigo says, to think I originally became a member around the beginning of the saga. Hey, Andrew, what do you think? RK's last chance to plead insanity? Not going to happen. He's done. Everything's done now. There's no pleas or anything else he can do. It's all a potential to appeal. An important thing about Korean appeals is that he really can only appeal the law and any mistakes the prosecution made. So an important thing about Korea is you can't appeal mistakes you made. So if his attorney made a mistake, it's not appealable. Darker Binding said, couldn't happen to a nicer, worse person. That's right. Darth Kennan says, it's cabbage time. That's right. Dead Brad says, yesterday was my birthday. This is a great present. Yep. Casewell said, alone and scared. No Hank, so alone. No Hank. And I think he was genuinely kicked out of Hank's place because we did not see Hank there. His mom was not there, and his lawyer was not there. He was completely alone. Rigo, thank you for the memberships. Manachan said, RKI can only hope for a subscriber for 24 months. He's got nothing on his channel. Erlen says, finally the news we've been waiting for. That's right. FA has reached the FO result of the question. Alexis Artemis says, 9 months of cabbage picking. Thanks for the fun. It's been great. And we're going to be covering the appeal, because I imagine there will be an appeal either by the prosecutor or by Johnny. So I don't think this saga is completely over, but we at least have a prison conclusion here. Danny Skier said 6 months is not enough. Look at what happened with Vitaly. I completely agree. We'll go here for 20,000 won. Mr. Tracy Evans says, sorry for the lenient sentencing of Korea, commonly cited problem in our judiciary. Info, 6 months of imprisonment does include labor, but 20 days of detention doesn't. Correct. It is rare for a sentence to be increased upon appeal. So what may happen is that he may get the 20 days of detention first, and then he'll go into the labor. So what they might do is they'll put him in the detention first without labor, decide which prison to send him to, and then send him off to labor. Matt Larson said, got a plushie. Will it arrive before RKI gets out? Yes, it will. It definitely will. So get your plushies. They're very cute. Wolfwood for 10 says 6 months is huge disrespect to people across the world. He has been a huge influence on copycats. And that's what I think as well. There will be a massive amount of copycats if they don't increase it potentially. I think it will stop some people, but not everybody. I think people will say, I'll do 6 months in prison and come out and be popular, just like Vitaly. C3 Metal Thingies for 10 says, let's get ready for cabbages. In the red corner, Victor S. Korea. In the black corner, loser RKI. What prize will RKI receive from the judge? Stick around to find out. Well, his prize was 6 months with labor in jail. Unbound Valkyrie said, swear jar ammo. My swear jar is in Thailand, so I'm without that, but I'm going to try to stay kosher here. Bar Lucifer said, the day we've all been waiting for is here. Salvador Calgarius Delcari for 100 ARS, Argentina, said he should remain in jail until he can fully speak Korean with no accent. Well, the good thing is he will be in Korea. He'll be in jail with Koreans. He will not be in there with English speakers. So I think that's going to be something that he absolutely hates, because he's not going to be able to communicate at all in jail. He's going to be isolated and, perhaps, drop that Korean soap. The Devil's Advocate for 10 says, this is an utter travesty. I hope the prosecutor appeals this limp-wristed sentence. Until then, let's enjoy that Johnny will see that every dollar our favorite Zorg lookalike earns. Enjoy the cabbage. Yeah, he's definitely seething that we all were there and we all will be profiting off of his demise, which is, once again, it just shows that, being a side of the truth, being a side of, supporting the country, the law, the culture is way better than being somebody negative. And I think these people that are making negative content have to see that. KWNY Upstate says, can he get 3 years working as a comfort man? Well, he might have 6 months as a comfort man. We'll see. Smiller1689 for 10 says, RKI needs a longer sentence than the Cabbage Patch in 6 months. Hope the appeal will get him more than 3 years. It cannot. The prosecutor asked for 3 years. So they're not going to be able to get more than 3. That's what the prosecutor asked for. So they're not going to be able to get more than that. However, they might be able to get 2 or 3. That is possible if they appeal. Dark Striler for 100 said, hello, I have a date with Carl Job's case. I'm in his Discord. He was counseling for his case and shown evidence to solve validation for his case. Now I'll listen to RKI. Cool. We'll be covering a lot of cases on this channel, and I hope you guys stick around for all that. Grill Piece 63 for 10 says, 6 months is an insult to the same world. It's a decent start, but the prosecutor should appeal for more time. I completely agree. Marzi Malfoy for 9.99 says, happy that you went to show the Americans and YouTubers do not condone his actions. America does not claim him. Yes. And we were approached and interviewed by many people and Koreans, and it was great to see that there. We had a lot of people coming out. Like I said, there were probably 35 or 40 people. About half of those were us foreigners that were visiting, or foreign people in Korea. This is huge for the international community, huge for expats, huge for people everywhere that live abroad, especially because it shows that the people that are living respectfully abroad, like myself and others, don't stand for this. We don't stand for this. Huang Jason 96 for 10 says, suppose the appeal goes through the prosecution side. What are the chances of the appeal? The prosecution will result in a longer sentence. What about Somali's appeal chances? Good question. So so studying Korean appeals, and I looked up these statistics, the appeal rate is much higher for prosecution than it is for defense. So on appeals, you have, as the prosecution side, about a 50 to 60% chance of an appeal being granted for the prosecutor. So if the prosecutor decides to bring it, it's likely to get to proceed and get that higher sentence. If Johnny, the defendant, appeals, it's under 50%. It's about, at best, anywhere between 35 to 45%. So it's under 50% chance on that to be lessened. But given that it was already a very mitigated verdict, I don't see it being any less than that. Wolf Thieb Soul 3601 for 99 has been following Somali's antics from nursing school. Awesome. An accelerated program all the way to being a registered nurse. What are the chances the prosecution appealed? Like I said, I think 50 to 60% chance. The other thing, and this is very important, guys, is that he has to appeal from jail. You do not get to get out of jail while you're appealed. So during the appeal, which can take 6 to 9 months. So if Johnny Somali appeals, he may be in there for the entire term of that appeal. So that can take 6 to 9 months. So he may be in there during the entire pendency of the appeal. Now, of course, if the prosecution appeals, they'll probably move it quicker because they want to make sure that he's getting that time and he doesn't get out, so they'll probably try to do it under 6 months. But they definitely will. They definitely will be doing that from jail. So he doesn't get to be out roaming the streets of Korea. Those days are done. Captain Obvious says, is it too late for an appeal to extend his sentence to 2 or 3 years? No, not at all. They have 7 days to do it, and I fully expect that there will be an appeal. The Squid 510 says, early, where's legal mindset? And well, I'm in Korea, and Korea has a pale culture, which is, if you guys know, it's kind of like hurrying up. And when I'm in Korea, I'm on it's very strict timing. In Thailand, things are more chill. We chill in Thailand, but here it is, I'm on time. Jarvis says, time for the cabbaging. That's right. Beatrice is granted. I predict when he's out of prison, go right back to prison for non-registration of his offender status. Life is ruined. Yes. So he is now a sex offender. And what I talked about is under SORNA, the U.S. law, he needs to register in the U.S. as a sex offender. That is part of the U.S. law. So when he goes back to America, he needs to register there as a sex offender. He's on the registry here for 5 years. So when he gets out, because he will not be here for 5 years, he'll be here for some period less than 5 years. So when he gets out and goes back to America, because once he is released from jail, he will be immediately deported. So he doesn't get to stay here a single day. He'll be immediately deported once he's out of jail. When that happens and he goes back to the United States, because that's the only place he can be deported to, he's only a U.S. citizen. He doesn't have citizenship elsewhere. When he's deported to the U.S., he needs to immediately register. If he doesn't do that, he can face up to 10 years in jail in the U.S. for non-registration. So that is a thing. Dark Striler for 100 Argentina says, I've decided I will go to South Korea and be a nuisance streamer. Then I'll get called out. I'll say what I was inspired by Johnny Somali case, 6 months in jail for $300. It's a deal. I mean, don't do it. Don't be a nuisance streamer. Don't be an a-hole. But I know that people are going to go out there and copycat because they don't think that's enough of a punishment, and they will factor that in. Bad actors do that all the time. Companies do that. I represented many large companies, and those large companies factor in, can we behave badly and just pay the fine and pay the fee? And if you think about it, 6 months in jail and 6 months of revenue for virality, for clout, for fame, some people will pay that price. There are people crazy enough. I know many of these IRL streamers. You see them right now on YouTube. You can probably name some of them that are crazy enough to do really dumb stuff to go viral and become famous and come out. Because Johnny Somali will think, hey, look, my name is out there. I'm famous. So he may think that clout is worth that 6 months in jail. When he's released, he should be exiled from the U.S. Well, I think one thing is countries should start barring these people from coming in. So he's going to be banned from Korea. There will be a ban from Korea. He obviously is banned from Japan. But I think other countries, if he tries to come to, like the Philippines or Europe or somewhere else, they should look at his criminal history and deny him entry as a tourist. I also think the U.S. has justification to revoke his passport. I think his passport should be revoked. And I think the U.S. should take action to do that because he is clearly an embarrassment to American culture. And I think that may be one thing I press the U.S. embassy on, to actually revoke his passport. Because I think now that we have a guilty verdict, we have a ability to revoke Johnny Somali's passport. And I think that would be a good and one on top of this. So I will be pushing the revoke Johnny's passport thing, right? And someone that said that you can't be stateless. I'm not saying revoke his citizenship. You can't do that, right? That's very difficult. But you can revoke his passport. A passport is a privilege. A passport is a privilege. A passport is not a right. You do not have a right to a passport. You have a right to be a citizen, not to anything else. So a passport, there's very justifiable reasons to revoke this guy's passport. And now that we have a guilty verdict, I think his passport should be revoked. And I think we have a good case for that. So I will be making that case. Claybuster 4503, member for 48 months, says, looking good, Andrew. Thanks for all you do. Oh, thank you. LMIZ Tan 47 says, is there a chance the U.S. not allow him back? No, they have to. He's a citizen, unfortunately. So that's going to happen. Sitstar Luchai for 200. Song Roy, Thai Bot, Copen Cop says, happy Songkran. Here's to my friend. Yeah, I was out celebrating Songkran. I was on Silom and Khaosan right before I left. I took a late night flight over here to Korea, a sneaky flight over here to Korea. So nobody knew I was here. And so he'd be surprised. Lloyd Christmas 4561 for 10 says, let's be blunt, a black young guy in a Korean prison only with sex offenders. Some may just know who he is and what he did. Would you want to be in that quagmire? Do they have lube in prison? Yeah, he may be a bit of, and once again, he's a very small guy. I mean, the word that was used to describe him today was twink. He may be in a Hank-like situation. If you know what was going on there with him and Hank in prison. For Canadian 1399 says, sorry, but 6 months was the same thing got in Japan. Too light. He didn't have labor in Japan. He will not change. This will only encourage ill faith, tourism, or harassment. Look at Japan right now. Judge. Sister Luchai gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. Anna K 101 says there must be an appeal for 10 Australian. This sets a bad precedent. What's to stop law-abiding travelers from crossing the legal line when pursuing South Korean actors and idols, knowing we'll get less than he did? I think this may inspire others to do the same thing. You're right. Hongdae 123. I love Hongdae. Staying in Hongdae. A long-time lurker, first-time comment. Is there anything we can do to encourage the Korean justice system to appeal the prosecution for a heavier sentence? My Japanese fiance and I were waiting for this. You need to comment on Korean media, comment on Korean social media. I think you can also write the prosecutor. We may be able to get the information for that. Maybe to write the prosecution office and push them to appeal this because we really do want this to be appealed. What we did was we actually engaged with and interviewed with the Korean media. So hopefully this gets out there. I mean, all the Korean major outlets were there and gets into Korean media and really puts pressure on them to do this. The other thing is the Korean media was kind of behind the ball on the charges. They really were not getting their story straight. They asked us about drug charges, but we covered this a long time ago. The drug charges were dropped like way long ago. They didn't know about the child sexual harassment charges that were filed. So we brought those up and said, hey, those are still out there and can be pursued. So we can have the child sexual harassment stuff, which is in a different district. It's in the Eastern District. Those child sexual harassment charges can carry several years in jail. So we can push them to do that. So while he's in there for this 6-month sentence, if they file that child sexual harassment stuff, they can get him more time easily. Alan Paley for 10 Canadian says, imagine upon his return to the USA, IRL streamers following him around as he does his mandated canvassing to announce him as a registered offender. That would be great to just call him out. Combiner said, Safa Ismael. Remember, he hates the name Ramsey Khalid Ismael. So call him that everywhere on social media. Not Johnny Somali. He's Ramsey Khalid Ismael. Little Ramsey. Mike for 10 says 6 months. What a joke. The judge might as well commit Gilgil to save his family and co-workers from the shame he brought to the Korean justice system. I think it's bad. Garrett says for high quality entertainment, vielen Dank, Esquire. It is Nixudanken. I am glad and Gruß to Deutschland, Österreich, Schweiz, wherever you are, to my German speaking brothers and sisters. It's been great to bring this coverage to everybody, and I appreciate everybody that approaches me and says thank you. I was approached, Songkran Big Water Festival in Thailand. I was out for that. I was approached by no less than a dozen people that came up, recognized me, and said thank you. And if you ever do see me and you're out in Asia, whether Korea, Japan, Thailand, Philippines, anywhere else where I might be traveling, you feel free to come up and say thanks and say what's up. I always like to interact with fans. It's a joke. I'm not going to be a nuisance streamer, but as you said, it will happen. I also hope that somebody like him goes to Argentina and offends Messi or Maradona. You're not coming out alive. There's a reason why they went to Asian countries. They perceive them as weak. And to be honest, Johnny Somali actually, in a way, kind of like that point was proven. You kind of let him win because you're showing your system is weak as compared to the United States, as compared to many other places. Even in the Philippines, they put Vitali away effectively for almost a year. So far more than 6 months he was in jail. So if you're going to be even lighter than Vitali, I think it's not going to work. And he was way worse than Vitali in terms of his criminal spree and in terms of what was against him. Giga Draymond 6 for 10 says SORNA only requires registration for the international offense also legal in the U.S. or equivalent. Deep banks are on a crime. There's an argument there. Once again, I think you can make an argument based on the category. Also, certain deepfakes have been criminalized, and there's certain crimes that are akin to deepfakes in the U.S. So I think you can make an argument for it. So I'm making an argument for that. There's an increasing change in the legislation there. So I think that because of the different laws, it's not one-to-one, but I think you can make an argument for it, right? And I think we should make an argument for it. Real Bob Johnson for 10 says, been busy to keep up with the live streams, but I've been keeping on the replay. Thanks for the coverage insight. Good work, brother. My pleasure. Digital Lee for 10 says, Legal Mindset, we need you and Mudang. Mudang is back in Thailand. To be good cop, bad cop with the sentencing judge, we need RKI sentence to be 5+ years. You be the good cop, Mudang is bad cop. Now, I don't think it'll go over 3 because that's the prosecutor's recommendation. So the prosecutor's not going to recommend over their recommendation. That would be kind of crazy. But it is possible to go up to 3. Sir Jack, member for 25 months. Thank you for that. We'll just go in chronological order now. Danny Quang says, no. Hey, goodbye.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?
Like I said, guys, if you are enjoying the stream or if you enjoy my coverage on this, make sure to smash the like button. Make sure to leave a comment. Like I said, if you want to go over here to my Ko-Fi, you can drop in a little bit of chump change for the Somali conviction team, kind of give back to them to reward them for all their assistance. We've been paying for translators here for other people. It's been a huge effort. There have been throughout the course of the trial over a dozen people working on this. There's really, about 4 or 5 core members, but it's been a really team effort, and it's going to be really great to see everybody coming together on this. Also, big shout out to Atozi and the others. We have a very collegial relationship with all the other YouTubers here and Kangmin Lee on X. We're not competing. We're all here to get the truth and get punishment for Johnny Somali. So it's been great to do this coverage together. Beatrice Sim says the real punishment is he'll become old news soon. That's true. Zaz Harry says, thank you for coming, Ramsey, all this time. No, my pleasure. The other chef says that the deepfakes are guilty. Will RKI get time? He did get time. He did get time for that. Wilson Wyson says, I hope it's longer than 3 years. It probably won't go beyond 3. It's possible. Nasdog says 6 months, weak slap on the wrist. I tend to agree. Kettlefire Charmer Hilta says, who knew the Korean judges, prosecutors, and officers know what the internet streams are? It's a completely alien concept for toilet streamers. Well, they knew because we, the Somali conviction team, filed documents with the court. We filed his streams. We did on, and I put this in my previous video, we submitted the evidence. We put it on a USB. We submitted his streams and we translated them into Korean. We went through the trouble of translating all of that information into Korean when it was not, the whole thing. So they got transcripts in Korean. They got videos with Korean subtitles. So we went through the trouble of doing that because we knew it was important for the judge to know and to see it, right? Because we knew that the judge might not normally do that. But now that was put into there. So both the prosecutor and judge got to see that because we showed them, right? So we know they did that. We know they knew that he was streaming during the trial because we had dates on that. And the dates that we submitted were after the trial started. We showed him how on his first trial day, he got drunk. He shit-talked to the Korean court. He threatened to bring a dead fish to the judge's mother's house. We showed all of that. And we showed his complete disrespect for the system. And I think that was important to him getting sentenced at all. Because to understand, he could have gotten a suspended sentence. There's a very real chance that could have happened. I was scared that was going to happen, legitimately. And the fact he didn't get a suspended sentence is good, right? That is good, right? Because in all other cases with foreigners, what they normally do, the normal treatment for foreigners, people, is a suspended sentence and deportation, is no prison. Korea typically is very light. They give you just deporting and no prison. That is what normally happens. So the fact he did get time is above and beyond. It is a good thing, but it's not enough. I don't think he would get 4 years, but 6 months. I thought Korea was hardcore on these things. No, they're generally light in overall, which is the problem with Korea. VTubing enthusiast became a member. Thank you. Kenneth Kemp said this proved his point. People can act up in Korea. I don't think they can completely act up, but it's not a strong enough deterrent. I'll agree with that. Hugashaka for 50 says, I put a bottle of champagne in the fridge when I get home from work because this event is worth celebrating. I mean, I am going to be celebrating tonight. I'll post some celebration photos because I'm going to definitely have some soju tonight. But is it as big of a celebration as I wanted? No, not necessarily. Mono Limon 7465 for 5 says, I wish I wasn't allergic to cabbage, but I look forward to getting the plushie. Too bad Arkia wasn't allergic to the nuisance and cloud. Off to jail. Saltfish YouTube for 7,500 won says, what is that? Sungmi? So hopefully Somali will learn from his mistakes. That's exactly right. My Hangul, what I realized, guys, coming back to Korea, I lived in Korea for 3 years. I relied on others a lot for translation here, but I did learn some Korean. My Korean's gotten extremely rusty since I moved out of Korea. But I want to spend more time here. I realize every time I come back how much I miss Korea. I love Korea. So I hope to spend more time here in the future. The Waffles for 6 Malaysian ringgit. This has been here since the start. Okay, I can cope and see. That's right. Dirk says, Yellow Flash says 6 months. Is it true? I just said, why don't you listen to me? I put it on my ex. I put it on everywhere. Why are you listening to Yellow Flash? Yellow Flash isn't even here. I love Yellow Flash. He's a great guy. I met him in person. He's a good guy. If so, Korea's too nice for their own good. Hope it's enough to dissuade other new streamers. GD to SCT. That's right. For the trip jar. Thank you. Burning Earth Production says, Andrew, regardless of what happens to RKI now in the future, I think I speak for everyone when I say thank you for coverage. No, thank you guys for supporting me, having, over 10,000, 11,000 people here today. That's been great. And you guys can help get the word out there on X, on other places, make comments on these videos, push these in the algorithm, like the video, comment on the video. If you think Johnny Somali deserves more time, and let's do the poll in the chat, because I think it's going to be the majority of you guys, right? I think that's going to be almost all of you guys. Let's see. I think I have to end the other poll. Well, whatever. I think the majority of you guys, I don't think anybody here thinks that that more time wouldn't be a good thing, right? M. Madden 1498 says, does ex-offenders go to the U.S.? No, he doesn't get shipped to the U.S. because he's a sex offender. He goes to the Korean jail. So he's a Korean sex offender for 5 years, right? And in my opinion, I think we can get that translated to U.S. sex offender status. Now, another chatter commented that we don't have the exact same deepfake law as Korea. We don't, but we have other laws which encapsulate that. So I think that's an argument for sex offender status in the U.S. 6 months is a huge L for the prosecution. It's only going to encourage more streamers to go there and do what they did. Yeah, I think others are looking at this. I think there's others that fled Korea and Japan and have not been doing Korea and Japan streams because they are afraid of the Johnny Somali trial. So I think a lot of these big nuisance streamers, and you guys know who they are. I don't have to say their names, but we all know who they are, have been paying attention to this. And I think they've been good little boys and girls in Japan and Korea and not come here and done anything. But let's see what they do now. Uncle Brat gifted 10 Legal Mindset memberships. Thank you so much. Peroro said, game over, RKI. That's right. Absolutely. Game over. TC Mudd for Australian 20 says, does he still have the underage charge hanging over? They can investigate. Yes. The child sexual harassment charges, which is harassing minors, which there's clear proof for, is still out there in the Eastern District. So what we may be able to do is write the prosecutors in the Eastern District and say, you need to prosecute him for this to get him more time in jail. So we have kind of two things we can push post-trial. Number one, his jail time is not enough. He needs more time. So what can we do? We can push the prosecutor to appeal. That's one thing. Second thing is we need those other charges. Those other charges should come. And I think it's time for them to come. And I think it's justified for them to come. And I think that they can look at that and say, this is not enough time. Johnny Somali did not get enough time. So let's bring those charges. So we can do that. Claire Fry says, considering how long the legal system takes to resolve, if the prosecutor's appeal, could he end up being stuck there after he serves his current sentence? There's a possibility of that because they wouldn't lift the travel ban until the process is complete. But it gets complicated where they might have to release him from jail, but there still would be a travel ban. So he wouldn't be able to leave. Possible. Jiwon Yoon, member 77, new member. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Hong Daega says, now that I asked a question about how we can increase the sentence, I wanted to ask you a fun one since you mentioned soju. Is Jinro you go to, or they're a hidden gem? I mean, I know a lot of people like Zero. That one is like kind of popular. I like Charm. That's pretty good. But Jinro is very good. I like the Jinro frog. The Jinro frog is cute. So I will go with Jinro for the frog. Dark Striler for 100 said, mi mensaje final de super chat. I think that new judge was, sorry for my really bad Spanish. I think that the new judge was a final hope RK needed. The first one would have given a 3. No. Let me correct this, Dark Striler. This was the same judge. The judge did not change. The judge did not change. The prosecutor changed to a woman from a man. So the prosecutor started as a man, ended as a woman. Just kind of cute too. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of Korean TV shows about like attorneys and judges, and there's a lot of Korean legal drama. There's one about like a judge that, this judge is one about a prosecutor, famous attorney Woo. But prosecutor's very cute. Not gonna lie. Kind of had a crush on the prosecutor. X1X for 50 says, can we send letters to Johnny Somali in jail? You know what? I'm gonna need to look into that. So we can definitely send to the prosecutor and definitely send to the judge won't matter as much anymore because the appeal will be with a different judge, right? But you can definitely send stuff to the prosecutors, so that will be possible. Whether Johnny Somali takes letters in jail is up in the air, and of course, he could just throw them away as well. If you do me these, he said he got off light because he's black. There, I said, no, not at what the hell? No. What are you talking about, bro? Like, you're insane. You think that like Korea does not sentence people? Like, first of all, as somebody who lives here, you got to understand, and this is something that people don't understand unless you've lived in Korea or lived abroad, especially in Korea. There's these racial issues and stuff. Johnny Somali tried to make that a thing. In Korea, there really isn't a perception. The race thing isn't a thing. There's foreigner versus Korean. That is a thing, right? But it's a generic category of all foreigners, right? No matter race, country, whatever, whether you're from China or Japan or American or whatever, you are a foreigner, right? Thus we treat you one way, and you are a Korean, thus they treat you another. And there's many reasons for that. On the one side, Koreans understand Korean culture and law. So there's always the argument from a non-Korean or foreigner that they didn't understand Korean culture and law. So the argument that Johnny Somali made and others make, everybody makes, is they didn't understand Korean culture and law, and therefore you need to let me off light, right? But other than that, with foreigners typically get deported. They don't get, all this sort of, there's racism and stuff. That's not real at all. If you look at the outcomes, it's usually deporting. It's very light. If anything, foreigners need to be punished more severely. And I, even as a foreigner abroad, am advocating for Asian countries to punish foreigners more severely. Let me say that once again. I am a foreigner living abroad, and I am advocating for foreigners to be punished more severely, right? You would think that's against my interest, right? That I would not argue that. But no, I think that people, when they commit crimes, particularly crimes for money and clout, not accidents, not like really petty stuff, but stuff for money, clout, stuff that, goes against the structure and order of Korea. Yeah, punish them severely. Project Starlight says 6 months is going to teach him anything. He's going to act out when he get back to the U.S. I probably agree. Hendrick fan says, I was wondering when Johnny was going to be incarcerated immediately. He's already gone off and he's already detained. So it starts today. Why is this? South Korea seems to drag their feet with legal procedures. We know someone in the stuff. In Korea, the process is the punishment. So the process is the punishment. That's why it takes forever. Dark Striler for 100 Argentina says, if we're going to send letters to RKI in prison, then we're going to flood him with emotional cabbages. Editor, put an emotional cabbages on the screen. I'll give you one right now.
Emotional cabbage.
Chihiro says, I'm late. What's the sentence? Okay, catch up in chat. 6 months and 20 days with labor. 6 months with labor and then additional 20 days of detention. 5 years registration and sex offender. His phones are permanently confiscated. So his phones are gone forever. And his possessions will be taken until the end. So the other stuff, but the phones are gone. Morning. So 6 months for the amount of things he did, especially considering how much he did while going through the trial process. There will be more nuisance streamers going there. Bad precedent. I tend to agree with that. I'll go back and start chronologically. Pilot Girl says, how long will he be considered a sex offender in the U.S.? Is that a felony? Well, it really depends on when he goes back to the U.S. So we'll see about that. If he's required to register under SORNA, which I believe, then he would need to do that for the pendency, how long he's considered a sex offender in Korea. Kim One says, what does he do that warrants sex offender charges? The deepfakes. The deepfakes are considered a sexual crime. So those warrant sex offender status. Potentially they do. Yes. Do the sex offender laws transfer? Potentially under SORNA. Anthony says, can he get off easy with the insanity plea? No insanity plea. Mark Hansen doesn't remember. Welcome. 1-2 cents says, shame on the judge. I really hope the prosecution appeals. 6 months and he'll be back doing the exact same thing. Maybe in a new country. I agree. On civil law, Kurt, what's up? Is it possible for the prosecutor to appeal criminal sentence? See U.S. versus D. Francisco and PA and Goldhammer. Hey, uncivil law. Love you, buddy. Appreciate you. Uncivil law, really great for Supreme Court stuff. But the thing about Korea is it's very predominant. Like the majority of appeals that are successful and that go on are the prosecution appeals. So it's a much more different environment than the U.S., right? Michael McLeod says, actually, will there be consequences for Hank? Not that we know of yet. So far, nothing for Hank. And to be honest, I don't mention Hank anymore. I've talked about this because he's out of the picture. He seems to have divorced from Somali. I do genuinely believe, because he was not there today, that Hank and Ramsey have broken up. They had, of course, a love fest. They were rooming together. He did interviews where he talks about, their relationship and what went on. There's a lot of speculation of how he was paying Hank back. He borrowed a lot of money from Hank. He used Hank's family attorney. There were IOUs that were issued there. So a lot of stuff going there with Hank, but Hank removed himself. So, there's really nothing to talk about Hank anymore. DMC 7696 says, are there any pending sentences for Ramsey? Potentially the child sexual harassment charges if they go through with that. Charmer Hilton said a bit more than 6 months of labor only. It sounds like something a lot of judges would do in the U.S. A slap on the wrist for sentencing crime sprees. Definitely a slap on the wrist. Idiot Enforcer said we have to register. Maybe. Vietmac 1993 says, can Johnny get more time in prison in addition to solitary confinement if he continues to act out? There's possibility for getting punished in prison, but more likely he'll just get solitary confinement. Deportation or ban. So once he's deported, he will also be banned. So it'll be deportation and ban after his criminal sentence. So after that, passport will include sex offender. No, it doesn't go on your passport, but he will have that on his criminal record. Patricia Mary says, possible Korean courts don't want a long sentence because they view him as a burden money-wise. No, I don't think that's it. Larry Powers, 2515, says, disappointing the verdict. Should have gotten 2 years minimum. It won't deter the news streamers who'll be bragging about getting off lightly. I agree. Super Science said, I'll take what I can get. 6 months is better than no months. He's been stuck there for over a year, so glass half full, but it's still disappointing. I agree. YouTube skip my $10 super chat. Well, I got this one. Lewis Calley said 6 months. Maybe the appeal will get him longer. If not, the sooner he'll be back here and begin the Golden Goblin America edition. I agree. KSI YouTube is still up. Any thoughts? I think that Ramsey stuff will mostly get taken down, and he's not monetized on anything. So yeah, he's not going to be making any money. Can he get more time for bad behavior and in prison, potentially, but more likely solitary confinement. And Grover says, any early read on how Korean people are reacting? We'll see. We're going to see. I'm going to give you that reaction because we gave an interview with them. I don't think they're going to be happy with it based on how we presented it from our perspective. So I think Korean media, based on our interview, is going to give a perception that we wanted more and that this is not enough for Korea and an insult to Korea. Imagine if I lived in Seoul, I'd be pretty unhappy. Yeah, I think if he didn't get prison time, there might be a riot. Code the Fox for $4.99 says, what are the odds that this is part of a strategy and they're planning to go after the sexual harassment and slam him? Possible. We'll see. Mr. Tongatsu says, it's short, but we did it, bro. Yes, Ton, a member of the SCT. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Big love. W. As we say,
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
we got prison time. So we did win. We did win. So I take my W's. Bob Doodle says, I'm very sad he only got 10 months. Any thoughts? Yeah, I want more, but it's still a W. Captain Dog says, I started watching you because of a certain porcine Gunt old man's rant. Joke's on him. You do great work. Thank you. Legal mindset. Richard Fowler, 9135, says, you said the process is the punishment. Is it possible the 1 year plus he's been stuck there was considered as part of the sentence? Maybe the judge factored that in. The judge did say that he had a disadvantage. So I left this out. The judge did say he had a disadvantage because of the travel ban. So the judge did say that. So it is something that the judge said he was at like a strategic disadvantage because of that. But the only thing he would have done is fled the country. If he didn't have a travel ban, he would have left. So I don't know how the judge, that's why I think the prosecutors need to appeal. There's some bad logic on the part of the judge. Project Stars for 10 said, did RK get a ban from Korea as well once he sentenced his sort of sentence? Yes, it'll be 5 years. Also, any idea the prosecutors plan to appeal? I don't know yet, but I think they should. I believe they should. The Big Coom, 6297, so you need to put him away for 10 years for hard labor, away from everybody else, or he'll learn. Technically, it's just labor, not like mining or something like that, but it's factory work, so it's physical work, monotonous labor. But yeah, he needs more time. I do agree. Zero says Johnny needs to head to North Korea next. He'd be dead. Macross 7+ for 5 says international relations major here. Is there any difference between the ban from Korea and a persona non grata? Interesting one. Yeah, I mean, it's a temporary thing. It's not something that's like permanent status. So typically when we're talking about persona non grata, that's like a permanent black mark on your thing versus a temporary ban. Holy Merit for 5 Australians says, thank you for your coverage. First time to a live chat and recent viewer to your fast facts. Find them very informative and educational. Thank you. I will do a fast fact for this, so we'll get a summary, but of course you guys get it live and fresh on the stream. Tyron Das is greetings from Florida, fellow Florida man. Of course, I'm from Miami. Any chance Somali being banned from returning to South Korea? Yes, he'll be banned for 5 years. And understand that is a hard ban. So for 5 years, he cannot come to Korea. But anytime you travel, they can choose whether or not to let you back in. So even after 5 months, the immigration officials have discretion to let him back in. And I think anybody who knows who he is, which a lot of people do, is not going to let him back in. They're going to look at his history and look at the crimes and say, yeah, we're just not going to let you back in. You officially can come back right on paper, but it's always discretionary. You can show up to a country. This can happen in any country, and they can turn you away as a tourist. You don't have a right to be a tourist. I am a COD, says for 10. Such a shame South Korea is never going to look at streaming the same. Nikki P says, how does it affect him coming back to America mainly as a sex offender? And you cover that. I covered that in a video. I do believe he will have to register. There's arguments that he may not, but I do believe he will. Atlantic 770 for 10. Oido says, Grüß aus Deutschland und alle Infams. I'm waiting this day. This day was a long time coming. I've been waiting for it kind of nervously, but I did get a resolution. So I feel a lot better, but not completely satisfied. Samuel Robinson, 1150 for 10, says, I was curious about how Koreans will react. I found this YouTube video. I can't paste in the super chat. I will be covering the Korean reaction after this. So don't worry, that'll be coming. Darth One for 10 says, Johnny thinks about him more than his own name, legal mindset. Red free, enemy number one. He isn't just in your mentions. He's in your nightmares, in your reruns, in your head. Sup, legal man? What's up, Darth Torland? Hopefully you get your channel restored. I know you had some problems with your channel. Some good content there. Bad News Badger for 100 Danish krona. The moment you get a passport and travel abroad, in addition to being a citizen, you also become an ambassador without diplomat responsibilities for your country. This. I have always believed as a traveler, you are an ambassador. And as a bad ambassador to your country, someone who is weakening the U.S.'s perception abroad, you have the duty to do that if you want to maintain that passport. So let's get his passport revoked. We can do that. Not citizenship, the passport. That is a privilege, not a right. Axel became a YouTube member. Thank you very much for that. Silbury Sign, member for 25 months, says, woo, last time you were this backlogged on Supas, we were showing the Koei sims for Tenma's mom. I hope RKI sees how much you're farming. Oh, yeah. I mean, every time I think I get the number down, it goes up. So I'm going to have to go fast here. Omega Robot for 9.99 says, Andrew, thank you for being you. Always been myself. I'm seeking for a job for 2023. And as a month ago, I've landed a job as an accountant law firm. Good job. Thanks for keeping me sane. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you and congratulations. Best of luck for you at your new job. David Von Cleff for 500 yen says if he somehow manages to arrange his deportation to a third country, he can't. He cannot. He's only a U.S. citizen. No, that impossible. I'm Cod for 2. Australian, thank you. Steven for 5 says, would he only need to register in the U.S. for 5 years? U.S. doesn't put people in the registry for a limited time. He has to register. So it's the U.S. doesn't do it automatically. You have to do it. And then if you don't do it, they got to prosecute you. So it's a little bit complicated in the U.S. Herm Dude for 5 Singapore says, I hope there's enough black expats during the verdict. Otherwise, Koreans think that, of course, the white man wants the black man to stay. It's not that way, dude. I'm going to be honest with you. The race thing, that's some U.S. Western shit. I'm just going to say it, right? And this is, listen to me, I've lived in Korea for 3 years. They use the term Weigugan. That means foreigner. They don't use the term for white, black, Hispanic, whatever. That's all U.S. Western shit. And unless you've lived abroad, you really have to remove that from your mind and understand it is not about race. It is about you are a foreigner or you are a Korean. That is how they perceive it. And that is the Korean perception, right? Now, of course, there is nuance, and there are some people that think in nuance, but I'm thinking as a whole, generally, and as a justice system, it is really foreigner versus Korean. And there's 2 different sides to that, right? That's why there's a foreigner prison. There's not a white prison and a black prison here. There's a foreigner prison. That's the difference, right? I'm Cod says, I guess you could say his plans went south. That's right. He never made it on that raft. Hi, Dragonstar for 5. So how long will we be on the sex offender list in Korea? 5 years in Korea, and then, of course, matching in the U.S. Haven't heard people getting off the list in the U.S., so 5 years yet. Mr. Atkins says, if the punishment isn't strong enough, then turns out in the cost of business, just ask State Farm and their bribing punishment. Yep. It will just be cost of business for streamers. They'll just do 6 months in jail and just shrug it off. Rian says, it's not about the sentence length, but the cellmate's girth. Hold on. No. Wait. So bad. Anthony says this will be his home pin in America. Interviews are out. Please tell us. Oh, I'll be covering them for sure. Kulavar says, for the love of everything holy, it's Kippa, not Kippa. Okay, sorry. People have been pronouncing it wrong to me, including Jews. So I had a Jewish person pronounce it wrong. Okay, so I was relying on the Israelites, right? Micah Q, 19 for 6.99 says, notice how none of these streamers FAFO in Singapore or Brunei because they don't want me to sit down after acting like clowns. Yeah, they'll get caned. You don't see people screwing around in countries where they really go hard. And that's why I think countries should really go hard. Mr. Madden says, I would hate if he pulls a Vitali. I heard he did some bad things. He can't pull a Vitali. Also, there's no bribing in Korean prison, so he's not going to be able to do the same thing that Vitali did in the prison and have access to his phone and a lot of other stuff because he, issued bribes. Johnny Smell should get 10 years in the joint. That would have been great. He could have gotten up to 12 years. Tomer said, hey, good morning from here. So how much did he get? 6 months with labor and 20 days detained on top of that. Can he have a passport as a registered SO? Technically, yes, but I don't think he should. Ike at the Pike says, do you think you should get a Venom meme 6 months for how much 6 months will be coming up during the appeals? It's going to come up a lot. Wyatt the Y says, does this 5 years of him as an SO start now? Yes. 5 years starts now. Danny Skier for 1,000 Nungroy Taibat. The Johnny Somali X did tell you he got kicked out of Hank's apartment like a few weeks ago. Also, screenshot of Hank saying he's done, but we didn't know whether to believe that or not. But today, after seeing what I saw, I genuinely believe they're broken up after seeing it in person. Kravak for 10 says, do you think the other charges were being held until the trial was fully concluded? Possible. If they were brought now, what would this do to potential prison time? Well, what they would do, it doesn't change the prison time for this charge. It adds on time. So he could get, I believe, up to 5 or 10 years. I'd have to check on that. He could get an extra 5 or 10 years in jail. So, I mean, that would be amazing. And even if he got a couple years in jail, that'd be amazing. Adam Kratos says, I've only known about this case because of people like you and Atozi. The fact you got 6 months of disgrace. Here's hoping there's an appeal. Me too. Code the Fox says for $4.99, the odds of the strategy actually being to slam him with CHS using his conviction and sex offender status to make him hit it harder, possible. They could be trying to hit him with that afterwards. Peroro said there's no point in hiding RKI. Nope. Professor Keem says, is Korea's system weak? Yes, I think it is weak. He said he might not live to see the end of his term. I don't think he's going to get killed in jail. He might get roughed up, though, and might have some bathroom fun, if you know what I'm talking about. 5,001. Nice meeting you today. Oh, Dago guy, what's up? Great. Let me know when you're partying if others are invited. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Keep it on the DL. Gino said, just got off work. S offender status. Yes, he's an offender as of today, a registered sex offender. So you can call Johnny Somali, non-defamatory, a sex offender. Axel says, thank goodness with SCOTUS hearing was a few weeks ago. Otherwise, Somali would have been used it as a reason to end birthright citizenship in the U.S. Oof. Ellen Nuck says, what are the odds he gets jumped in jail as often as he did in the streets? He might. He's going in with all Koreans. You and others tried to help and still Korea weak. We tried. At least we got some prison. I'm Cod says, safe to say I'm American card didn't work out. Ramsey, nope, it didn't. He said, I'm an American. What are they going to do to me? I'm an American citizen. They can't throw me in jail. They can't throw me in jail because I'm American. No, they did, bro. They got you. Fair Fiasco says, please tell me where you can write the judge. Yeah, I'm going to get that information out there. I'll have that in a future video. I'll put that up on X because I think that will help to write the prosecutor now. I'm going to get that information out there. Ryobi for $6.99 Canadian says, we show evidence of threats, harassments, and disregard of the law, yet we got a tiny tap on the head. I can feel gun run taking notes to flee to South Korea. That's possible. Those Vishojo bad actors. Project Starlight says, well, a prosecutor appeal 6 months is bullshit. I think they should, and I think they will. Venom Snake for 5 says, glad he's guilty, but it needs to be longer. All it takes is rich enough streamer to see the sentence as simply 6 months for the cost of fame. Yeah. I mean, if you have the money of Vitaly, right? For example, Vitaly has legitimately has a lot of money. If you have the money of like somebody like Vitaly, 6 months is a joke. So someone like Vitaly will just pay that. Carl Crump says, sweet justice. I agree. Mike for 5 says, must he serve the full 6 months? Yes, there's no early release. Korea does not do early release. Good question. Good question. There's no way to reduce that. For sure, he gets the 6 months. Zerus SB says maybe when he gets out, he can try that crap in North Korea. He's not going to North Korea. Magic Misa says the prosecutor's a Time Lord. Interesting. Luganzan says, can we send him a cabbage plushie? Possible. We may be able to send him a cabbage plushie. The Food of Fantasy that might meet me in Japan if I'm meeting there with the Railroad Corporation for my patent. Awesome. Well, email me. EDMG says, despite the light sentence, something that might deter nuisance streamers is being stuck in the country for 2 years as their funds dry up. 2 years, 3 years. I think that's enough to disincentivize people. Reading Addict says, waited until today to get a cabbage plushie in celebration. Disappointed that sentencing was low. Hope the appeal for 3 years is successful. I do too. Bro said Leon S. Kennedy jabs his axe on RKI. Mr. Tubestut for 125 Philippine pesos says, thanks to the SCT. Thank you for all the effort on getting Cabbage Man behind bars. Hopefully we can still get jail time, but this is something. He did get jail time, but we need more. Roshdom, it's possible that they went light in the sentence due to the tensions between Korea and the U.S. administration, not wanting retaliation. No, I don't think politics factored in at all whatsoever. We know that both the left and the right, that's one thing we know about this. We spoke to many people and we spoke and worked with Korean streamers. Some of them are far right and some of them are far left. The one unifying factor in South Korea is hating Johnny Somali. And that's true about almost everybody. There are people in my chat that are on the left. There are people in the chat on the right. There are people that are center, all types of views. Everybody hates Johnny Somali. And there are reasons why both conservatives, liberals, everybody can hate it. It's not a political thing. And by the way, the wearing the MAGA hat, totally fake. He didn't wear the hat today. He didn't do any of that stuff. Jose Poveda says, buenas noches desde Chile. Oh, happy day. It's a good day. It is still a good day. Mike says, as we chat, what is he going through? Cavity search, mug shots. Can we make an episode about the prison he's in, his daily routine, diet, cell conditions, and classes? He won't have any classes to take, but he definitely will be doing prison labor. DJ Emerald Eye says, hello. First, hello, Andrew. Hope you make good. I've been great. I'm doing fantastic. Second, if RKI shows up in a new country, could they reference his priors and keep him out? Might be useful. Yes, this is what I want other countries to do. I want other countries to start checking the priors, having some international lists, and keeping these people out. Dark Player LTD for 125 said, I think we'll get written letters in those cabbages while RKI is doing a sentence. Possible. J-Man for 5 said, do they have debtor prisons like IOUs where the lawyer can have more time? There's no debtor prisons. That's not a thing. But if you're given a fine, you cannot leave until you've paid the fine or you serve extra jail fine to pay the fine. So that is a sort of, it's not debtor, but it's for the fine part. Along the way for 5 Oz says, good day from Australia. Loving the coverage. Hope he enjoys his time after seeing Death's game. I think the prison is too good for him. Panzer Kampfwagen for 5 says, when does the appeal process start? It can start right now. It's 7 days to submit it, and then it can go on for about 6 months even. When can we learn if he gets a longer sentence? We'll learn, over the next 7 days if he appeals. So we'll know if they're appealing in the next 7 days, and then we'll see how the appeal goes on. So we'll be tracking that. Arcade, come to Singapore. We promise nothing bad will happen. Killer Hate Man for 2, thank you. Kino Saga for 1, thank you. Panzer Kampfwagen, thank you as a new member. Lloyd Christmas says, any chance it gets reduced time for good behavior? No, doesn't happen. G Quagmire for 5 says, any charges pending or could be raised in other districts? The child sexual harassment charges are pending in the Eastern District. Pikachu Girl, I love Pikachu. Atozi and I were talking about, how we still play Pokemon. Some people were trying to make fun of us, like me and Atozi, where they're like, you guys still play Pokemon sometimes? Especially like on flights or when we're bored or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's nostalgia. Like we grew up playing Pokemon. So it's always good to go back for nostalgia purposes. On the bright side, no matter how long RK's sentence is, he still has a lot of people waiting to kick his ass. I think here's the thing about RKI. A longer sentence is actually good for him because if he got off light, there would be people waiting for him in America to beat his ass. And I don't encourage vigilante violence. I'm not encouraging violence. I can't say that on YouTube, right? For YouTube purposes. For the purposes of YouTube, I do not condone violence. I do not condone vigilantism. I am just explaining that when people are not punished, vigilantes take up the mantle and will do things like beating people up. Dalgoon in Korea punched him. And now Dalgoon did have consequences for that. He did have to pay a fine, all that good stuff, right? But people will take it in their own hands. And there were Americans that were waiting to do that. Also, big other thing, I forgot to play this. A member of the Somali conviction team got a threat from Johnny Somali's Discord last night. This may have been Johnny Somali, and this may have been a member of his Discord. I'm going to play, hopefully you guys can hear it, the threat that was sent last night to a member of the SCT, Gabe. They sent this to him. I'm going to play this guy. Hopefully you can hear it. Hold on, let me put up the volume.
Into trouble.
Here we go. Let's play this.
I have friends in Korea, and I have enough money to get you into trouble. You fucking bitch.
That was sent by a Somali account coded Demonic Somali, which is one of the known handles of Somali, to a member of the SCT last night. So trying to threaten us, intimidate. Of course, like you guys in the chat, like bro, like it was like all you guys laughing. We just fucking laugh at that shit. The Somali Discord, we've proven this, are a bunch of little babies. I'll say babies. There's another B word I want to say. They are so impotent. They've not been able to do nothing. They ain't done nothing. They've tried to scare me. They tried to threaten me. They tried to come out on fake hit pieces with me. They came out they slandered me, defamed me, created fake profiles. None of that shit worked. None of us are scared of that. They threatened to sue for defamation. They never did that shit. People sent me death threats. People do that. They're fake. They're all fake. The Somali Discord people, a bunch of weirdos. They're cringe. All they can do is try to come up with weird little internet stuff and try to come up with anonymous accounts and do stuff like that. Oh, you have friends in Korea. Like you don't even know how it works here, right? Like you didn't even know that, right? And the guy who they try to threaten, Gabe, has won cases in the Supreme Court here. He's been here for like 10, 15 years. He knows about Korea a lot more than some random guy from the Somali Discord. They're a bunch of pathetic losers, right? Absolute losers. Cygnus says for $9.99, question here: are the South Korean court opinions or written judgments made public? Thanks for all your coverage. We're going to have an official transcript, and I'm going to be able to get that to you guys at a certain point. It'll come out, and I'll be able to get that to you guys, like a fully documented transcript with like everything that went down. But and I'll have that in like a fast facts video. But there's no like the court doesn't like publish it in the same way. Kafalia says for 5, given the SO status in one district, will that affect them on future child charges? Yes. So as a repeat offender, you're sentenced more harshly. 77 Hunam says Jinro toad, not frog. Whatever, same thing. It's an amphibian, okay? Pilot Girl says, please discuss international Megan's law. Okay, that's a big separate topic. Bruce Rye for 5 says, as a convicted SO, he can kiss his international traveling days pretty much goodbye. I hope so. Lloyd Cripson says, is it possible for reduced time for good behavior? No. Bochak says, will you celebrate with good Korean food? Yes, we're going to get some good Korean food, some soju, some good stuff afterwards. I'll post pictures on X and other places, maybe on here on YouTube as well. The other chief says, please share the prosecutor's info. Okay, I will do it. Nick Cliff for 499 says, UK and Australia will ban RKF for sex crimes and other offenses. That's good. The Spitfire says, how long will he be on the register once he is in the U.S. tier 1 or tier 2? It would be matching the Korean time, assuming that's required, right? Which is my interpretation. Woden Limbo says, hypothetically, what if he fled? How? He's in handcuffs now. How is he going to flee? How? Johnny Somali, for the last 2 years, has been threatening to get on a raft and flee. Remember, he has a travel ban, so he can't get on any boat or plane. So how is he going to flee? He's going to break out of handcuffs. This guy is like this tall. Like he's like, I'm sitting, and he's probably shorter standing than I am sitting, right? Like, how is he going to flee? This guy is not MacGyver. He's not getting out. There's no way. How is he going to flee? It's not a thing. Heathcliff Revenge for 5 says, from what I've seen in Asia, both citizens and foreigners still get very lenient sentence compared to the U.S., even in case like murder. That's correct. And that's a problem. Alex Mini, 123 for 5 Canadian says, Chonan prison doesn't put prisoners in solitary unless they commit offenses while incarcerated. What Grok tells me, he won't be going to Chonan prison. He won't be going to Chonan prison. He'll be going to a labor prison, a specialized prison. Nathan K. Simpson, member for 15 months, says, what if foreigners living in Korea about to help? Well, if a foreigner is living here, they can help by writing the prosecutor and by getting on Korean media, by engaging with Korean media, social media. That is very effective. Getting on Naver, Kakao, etc. Putting that stuff out there. Xe Nez says he was stuck in Korea for 2 years. 6 months hard labor is going to be enough. He's shown that he didn't care while being stuck. It needs to be longer. I agree. Hondega 123 says, you said engagement in Korean media to encourage appeals for higher sentencing, but when I Google, all I get is Mael business article, link please. What I'll do is I will do a separate thing on how to do it and kind of put that out there. I don't have everything pulled out. Obviously, I came just from court, guys. I mean, other people like Atozi and stuff, they just were reporting on this as well. So we all just got out. So we're going to need time for more, for like what to do, and here's the instructions. But I will get out that in future videos for sure. Nathan K. Simpson for 7,500 said, what can foreigners do to draw attention? Like I said, comment, engage with it, say he needs a longer sentence. Everywhere in Korean media, say he needs a longer sentence. Say it needs to be appealed by the prosecutor, right? The prosecutor should appeal for a longer sentence. Everywhere. Celia Frostborn says, short sentence aside, what will Hanky do with his Somalian boyfriend in prison? Will he continue to try to support Johnny? No, he's done with Johnny, so it seems. I think he wanted to go to China, and he's sort of going to abandon him and leave the country. Because remember, Hank hasn't done his mandatory military service. He's been getting off as a student. So I think he's going to try to get out of the country to try to dodge that continually. Dark Strahler for 100. So I love the idea of telling his cellmates about his bad relationship with the cabbages. Then they can fill his cell with them. Editor, put 5 emotional cabbages to fill the scene. I'll put 1.
Emotional cabbage.
Barry Chronicles for 10 says this will inspire vigilantism if nuisance streamers continue. Good citizens need to rise up. I agree. Gundam style. I like that. Gundam style. I like that. That's a good one. Doesn't he have to worry about dropping the soap, or is it just a marathon thing? Oh, no. Those things happen in prisons all over the world. All over the world. Then Big Old Eyes for 15 Malaysian ringgit said, what are the chances Korea gave him a light sentence because they don't care if vigilantes F him up? I don't know. I think the judge really did have some bad logic in here. It seemed like it was like genuinely the judge factored in things that he shouldn't have factored in. Devil's Advocate says RKI treats charges like Pokemon. Got to catch them all. Could the prosecutors appeal for a longer sentence? Yes, they have 7 days to do so, and I think they should. Alex Ben said, did my other super chat get it read already? I think it did. Hedge for 500, thank you. C3 Metal said, I'm sure the rooftop Koreans will be waiting. Oh, yeah. Rinzu said, here's for the party funds. It's time for celebration. And Jose said, I missed the first part. Why were 6 months? 6 months the sentence they gave to him. 6 months of labor and 20 days of additional detention based on a balance of the factors. So they balanced in some mitigation based on the fact that there was a settlement with Jungmann. And also that Bong Bong didn't want to seek punishment, even though she did. That's not true, right? She said she didn't feel that much shame, but that's a mischaracterization. And then on top of that, right, they factored in, those were mitigating. They also factored in that it was a criminal spree, that it was monetized, and it was doing things over a long period of time, including during the trial, right? So that was factored in. Kettlefire Charmer Hilta said, unrelated to this, I've been wondering what was going on with the big Japanese VTuber agency in multiple companies. Is it illegal to commit constructive discharge because most of employees talents? That is for a separate stream. There are a lot of problems with these VTubing companies and companies with corruption and bad practices. Let's get that on another stream. I am Khan said for 10, even if he did flee, his name is already elsewhere, as is his face. If he went back to the U.S. or pretty much anywhere, that would really kick the hornet's nest of vigilante justice. I think the U.S. is the main problem. There's a lot of people in America, particularly the Somalian community, which is really mad at him, that might be roughing him up when he gets back. Kathy Swamp Queen says for 5, were you able to get the gist of the Koreans' reaction to the sentence, how they feel about it? I think they agree with us. I think the normal Koreans in the Korean media, especially after they see how we reacted, were agreeing with us that it's not enough. I think that normal Koreans, average Koreans, would think that's not enough. Amanda Main, 8742, said that prison pocket is going to get opened up. Oh, yeah. He's going to be real opened up in prison. All right, guys, listen. That's what I have for today. Thank you for tuning in for this. There'll be a summary of this. I'm going to have more on the reaction from Korea coming up, more on the potential appeal coming up, and also I'll have a summary video going over everything. Thanks for being based. Make sure to like the video, get your cabbage, support the SCT. Let me get these 2 comments here. Dark Striler for 100 said this was the cringiest death threat I ever heard. His voice itself is the crime. It's horrible, but we'll forget it or use it for the SCT. That's right. Oompa Loompa. So what if Korea is still trolling RK, making him think he's only getting 6 months and bam, slap one more time during the appeal? That would be the ultimate troll. And that would be the thing that would send him coping and seething. All right, guys, until next time, stay based. Peace.
You are coping and seething. You just can't believe what you're seeing. Yes, you're coping and seething. The truth it is all day, and now you are more than you're coping, coping so hard. Coping, you're seething. Coping, you're seething.